Dorothy was born in a village that woke before the sun and slept after the stars. The land breathed with red earth and patient grass, and the mornings arrived with the steady rhythm of pestles and mortars. At 22, Dorothy had learned the language of that rhythm, the way a child learns a lullaby long before understanding the words. She moved through the village with hands that were always busy and a heart that never rushed. From early dawn, Dorothy helped the aged and the sick. She fetched water from the well with a careful pace so the bucket would not spill, washed feet that had walked many seasons, cleaned wounds with boiled leaves and patience, and sat with elders when pain made the hours stretch. She understood that help was not always medicine. Sometimes it was a steady presence, sometimes a bowl of warm food, sometimes simply being there when fear grew louder than hope. The village noticed her quiet devotion, and even the chickens learned to step aside when she passed. Papa watched all of this from the shade of the old mango tree beside their home. At 55, his back carried the memory of hard years and honest work. He had taught Dorothy to read the sky for rain and the soil for planting, and she had taught him to listen again to the small joys he once hurried past. Their bond was woven from shared mornings and unspoken understanding. When Papa's joints ached, Dorothy warmed water and rubbed his hands. When Dorothy felt the weight of the world pressing in, Papa's calm presence steadied her breathing. The village had known illness like it knows drought, not as a stranger, but as a familiar trial. Dorothy felt its pull deeply. She saw how sickness bent even the strongest backs, how knowledge could turn fear into action, how care could transform a day. Her dream grew quietly, the way feeds do beneath the soil. She wanted to become a nurse. She wanted to carry knowledge like a lantern and bring it back home. Leaving the village was not a loud decision. It unfolded in small moments. A folded piece of paper listing her hopes, a borrowed bag mended at the seams, Papa's eyes lingering on her face longer than usual. The day she left, the road shimmered with heat and possibility. Dorothy walked away with the weight of goodbye in her chest and the promise of return beating beside it. The city did not greet her gently. Its noise pressed against her ears, and its buildings stood like walls of ambition. Hunger arrived early and often. Dorothy learned how to stretch a single meal into two and how to laugh at herself when her stomach protested too loudly. She took odd jobs by day, cleaning floors until they shone, carrying loads that tested her strength, helping wherever help was needed. At night, she studied beneath flickering lights, memorizing bones and names, practicing skills with careful attention. Sleep became a visitor she met briefly and gratefully. Doubt followed her like a shadow. Some days it grew long and heavy. Other days it shrank beneath determination. When loneliness pressed in, Dorothy remembered the village mornings and Papa's steady presence. She remembered the elders' hands in hers and the way care could change a moment. Those memories became fuel. She learned to find light humor in small victories, like mastering a difficult lesson or discovering that her cooking improved when she stopped guessing and started measuring. The years in the city carved Dorothy into something stronger and softer at once. She learned discipline and compassion, science and patience. She failed at times and learned to stand again. Her hands grew confident, her mind sharpened, her heart remained wide. When graduation day arrived, it felt less like an ending and more like a turning point. Dorothy stood with the knowledge she had earned and the promise she had carried all along. Returning home was a journey filled with memories. The road back seemed shorter, though it was the same distance. The village appeared with familiar colors and scents, and Dorothy's steps slowed as she approached the mango tree. Papa was there, older and still steady, his presence as grounding as ever. The reunion carried years of hope, loss, and resilience. Dorothy had left to learn, and she returned to serve. As a nurse, Dorothy became more than a professional. She became a symbol of what could be grown from perseverance. She brought new practices, shared knowledge, and listened deeply. The village felt the change not as a sudden shift, but as a gentle strengthening. Illness met care more swiftly. Fear met understanding. Young people saw a path that led outward and back again. Dorothy's life settled into a rhythm that felt right. Mornings returned to her, now filled with purpose sharpened by skill. Evenings carried gratitude and quiet reflection. Papa watched with pride that needed no words. The village breathed a little easier. The story of Dorothy was not one of leaving and forgetting. It was one of leaving to return, of learning to give more fully. Her hands, once those of a helpful girl, became the hands that carried tomorrow. And in the village that woke before the sun and slept after the stars, hope found a permanent home. Yet the story did not truly end there. Dorothy understood that transformation was not a single moment, but a continuous journey. Each day brought new challenges, from stubborn illnesses to limited resources, and each day required creativity, patience, and faith. She trained helpers from the village, teaching them simple care, hygiene, and observation so that knowledge would multiply rather than rest in one pair of hands. Papa became a quiet witness to this growing change. Though his age slowed his steps, his spirit lifted as he saw children walk taller and elders smile more easily. Loss still visited the village, as it always had, but it no longer arrived alone. It came met with understanding, preparation, and compassion. Dorothy learned to carry grief without letting her heart harden, honoring those lost by caring even more deeply for the living. At times, exhaustion crept in, reminding her of the city nights when sleep was scarce and dreams were heavy. In those moments, Dorothy returned to the simple rituals that had shaped her childhood, greeting the morning air, washing her hands with intention, grounding herself in gratitude. Light humor found its way into long days through small mishaps, unexpected lessons, and the gentle irony of life continuing to surprise even the most prepared. The small village slowly became a place others looked toward, not because it was perfect, but because it proved what was possible. Dorothy's journey inspired stories carried by travelers and shared under distant trees. Young people began to dream without fear of forgetting where they came from. They saw that leaving could be an act of love, and returning could be an act of strength. As seasons passed, Dorothy remained both student and teacher. She learned from the resilience around her and gave back through service. Papa's presence remained her anchor, a living reminder that roots and wings could exist together. Their bond, tested by distance and time, emerged unbroken and deepened. Dorothy's life stood as quiet proof that determination, guided by compassion, could transform not only one destiny, but many. Her hands, shaped by village soil and city struggle, continued to carry tomorrow forward. And in that enduring rhythm of dawn and dusk, the village lived on, strengthened by hope that had learned how to endure.